What's up guys, Mickle here, and we just got a brand new motion in the Ripple SEC case. So in this video, we're going to break that down, but towards the end of the video, I actually talk about a massive event taking place later tonight that I think everyone needs to be paying attention to. Guys, I really do think this event is going to outline what we are going to see in the next coming months and years and really play out in an extremely bullish fashion for the cryptocurrency industry. Like always, your support means so much to this channel. Thank you to everyone who likes the videos and is subscribed to the channel. Guys, these things really do help me out so much. Also, if you ever need a place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange Uphold down in the description of this video. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So guys, let's jump into it and start off with the brand new motion we just saw filed in the Ripple SEC case. And guys, to me, this isn't really something we need to be hyper focused on. The big date we're really waiting for in this case is May 6th. That is when the SEC is going to file their response to Ripple in regards to, one, whether or not Ripple's ODL product will be able to persist in the United States using XRP, and two, what Ripple's fine will be. Now, we know the SEC started out saying that Ripple should owe them $2 billion and ODL shouldn't be allowed. Ripple then made their argument for why they should only be giving the SEC $10 million instead of $2 billion, and also that their new ODL product is different and therefore should be allowed. And now the SEC is going to respond to that on May 6th. Now guys, what we're seeing today is essentially Ripple and the SEC fighting over whether or not the SEC should be allowed to put a new expert on the case. Now the SEC is saying that this isn't really an expert. This person is just summarizing some of her views. Ripple is calling her an expert. Guys, the thing I want to make clear is I don't think this really matters. At the end of the day, I think Judge Torres probably has already made up her decision, or at least is 90% there on how she's going to rule. I don't think this expert is really going to make much of a difference. I have a feeling the SEC and Ripple are just kind of fighting about nothing right here, and it's going to end up being pretty insignificant to the fact pattern we have already seen play out in this case. Either way though, this is the filing that we saw earlier today, and we're expecting to see a response from Ripple in the next 2 to 3 days. But like I said, whoever wins this motion or this mini battle within the larger case, I don't think it really matters. I think the big thing we need to be paying attention to is on May 6th. That is when we see the SEC break down their argument why Ripple should give them $2 billion and why ODL should not be allowed in the United States. That's going to be the set of documentation that I believe is going to be very interesting to dive into. And it's also going to be the last time we see any filings in this Ripple SEC case, which is absolutely amazing. It shows we have made it to the end. And then 30 to 60 days from there, I have a feeling this case is going to be over. I want to move on though and quickly talk about something that I find extremely interesting, and that is that the SEC is now really coming out in full force saying that Ethereum is a security. Guys, talk about a complete 180 from the SEC. The SEC went from giving Ethereum a free pass to now re-slamming the door on Ethereum, once again calling it a security. Now guys, apparently Gary Gensler has been saying it was a security since early last year. He just didn't want to tell anyone. But what's so weird about Gary Gensler doing this is he's also the one who approved an Ethereum futures ETF. So the SEC was investigating Ethereum, but still approved the Ethereum futures ETF. This is once again another example of the SEC just absolutely not protecting investors. The SEC is constantly doing this thing where they'll talk out of one side of their mouth and then do something completely different behind the scenes. Here we see that the SEC was investigating Ethereum, meanwhile approving regulated Ethereum products, all while confusing the market, saying that they're not going to answer to whether Ethereum is a security or not, when they already said it wasn't, but turns out behind the scenes they're thinking that it is. Guys, it makes absolutely no sense. It's shocking that this agency has been allowed to get away with this. One of my biggest gripes is that Congress really has done absolutely nothing to hold the SEC accountable. We have a laundry list of things here that the SEC has blatantly done completely wrong. We have a laundry list of things that Gary Gensler should be kicked out of his position at the SEC for, but we can't get Congress to actually do anything about it, and therefore Gary Gensler is just going to keep acting like this and face zero repercussions. Guys, it's absolutely terrible. The only good news I can take away from this is that Gary Gensler's term is almost up. Hopefully we see a new administration come in the fall and really clean house. We get a good SEC chair in like Hester Peirce or Brian Brooks, and we see an SEC that actually looks to help this industry move forward. Guys, I've said this countless times. Whether or not I think Ethereum is a security or not doesn't really matter. I really disagree wholeheartedly with the SEC's approach here. The SEC is essentially going to the car industry and telling the car industry they need to abide by the airplane industry laws. Guys, it just makes absolutely no sense to be crossing these things. They're completely different products. So even if I do think things with the Ethereum network could be securities, it's still completely unfair because essentially everything happening on the Ethereum side that could be labeled as a security essentially would break the securities laws we have in the United States because the technology severely outdates the laws we have in place to handle securities. At the end of the day, we just don't have the infrastructure set up to make Ethereum a security, so it's essentially just the SEC quasi-labeling it as illegal, which is gross and disgusting. Whether or not it's a security really shouldn't matter if you have the appropriate regulations in place to handle it either way. The SEC has not done the hard work. They have not put the appropriate regulations in place if they were to label it a security. Instead, they just want to label it a security and then see what happens from there. Absolutely disgusting. It shows that the SEC has absolutely no intent in protecting any investors. Instead, they're just looking to grab as much land as possible in this new emerging asset class. I want to move on though and talk about something very exciting happening later tonight that I think everyone has to keep their eye on, and that is Hong Kong actually approving Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Guys, it's kind of funny that Hong Kong is now approving the Ethereum ETF, even though the United States looks to be backtracking on the Ethereum ETF. Every single time the United States seems like, oh, it might be catching up to the race, it falls back behind. But the important thing we need to understand here is just the fact that a jurisdiction like Hong Kong, which actually has ties back to mainland China in terms of people who are able to gain access to this product, it just shows that the idea that this industry is going to be banned, the idea that this industry is going to be pushed off into the shadows is decreasing exponentially every single day. This is the most important thing that I'm taking from this announcement. The fact that even a jurisdiction like China is actually opening, investing into these asset classes up to retail investors is really extremely bullish on ultimately this technology getting adopted at a deeper, larger scale. Guys, Hong Kong, China, that entire Pacific West area is going to cause massive inflows into this industry. And in the same exact way in the United States, the Bitcoin ETFs caused massive inflows into this industry, we're going to see the same thing for these Chinese ETFs. Guys, what we know is that the population in China is absolutely incredible. And because of the way that the government works over there, it actually might be more important than even us in the United States for retail investors there to gain access to some of these products. I really do think the more and more light switches we see flipped on in each jurisdiction, giving retail investors access to these products, the more and more liquidity we are going to see fly into this asset class. And while I think the liquidity coming in is really important, while I do think it's ultra critical that we have more and more investors buying into this asset class, like I said before, the thing that I think is really most important here is the fact that the jurisdictions are choosing to embrace this industry rather than push it into the shadows. If you asked me 3 years ago whether or not I thought we would have an American ETF for Bitcoin as well as a Chinese ETF for Bitcoin, I would say absolutely no way. It's too soon. We're likely to see these things by 2030, but in the next 2 years, it's just completely unrealistic. Guys, these things are happening at a rapid clip now. We see people are opening their arms to these vehicles, and I think this ultimately just keeps the bullish thesis completely intact and shows that there's actually a lot less risk around this industry than many people originally anticipated. Yes, the SEC is still trying to slow things down, but when you really zoom out and take a look at how insignificant the SEC is on the global scale, I think you're going to realize that the SEC is eventually just going to get pushed aside, and ultimately these products are going to be mainstream. These cryptocurrencies will be mainstream, and they're really going to be transformational to the entire internet as we know it today. I want to finish this video off and just show you something that is going to tie XRP back into all of this. And I just thought this was a very, very, very spot on post by XRP Drops. He says, Brad Garlinghouse doesn't miss a chance to introduce XRP to the financial elite. It takes exactly 30 seconds as he sits next to IMF's Ross Leckow, starts his introduction and explains XRP, know what you hold. And guys, I just think this is so important to understand. As we see mainstream cryptocurrency adoption, jurisdictions are going to start asking the question, right? What is this asset class actually used for? There's really only one company in my eyes making strides at that level, and the fact that Brad Garlinghouse is literally sitting down with some of the most powerful financial elite in the entire world explaining how XRP has utility. Well guys, in the same exact way you and I understand the utility XRP adds to decreasing the friction in the system, the financial elites are going to understand it as well. Likely when they start to actually dive into this asset class and start investing into it, they're going to look at XRP in a completely different light. Yes, they're going to see the Dogecoin coins, they're going to see the meme coins and likely think bad of the industry. But when they see XRP solving real world problems, XRP solving real world utility, and people like Brad Garlinghouse who are looking to actually foster the innovation in a responsible way, I think it's going to make them extremely bullish on investing into the asset you and I hold. Guys, this has always been the thesis for me. While I do love the libertarian movement of cryptocurrencies disrupting the powerful elite, while I do love that idea in general, I just really don't think it's that realistic. It seems like to me the elite still have a stronghold over most of the economy. It seems like to me the big powerful institutions who control the system are going to continue to control the system. And it seems like to me it's a lot more likely that these big powerful institutions are just going to adopt new rails rather than be replaced by a grassroots movement. In my eyes, the idea behind Ripple and XRP was always exactly this: create new rails for these financial elites, allow them to interact on decentralized blockchains, and if you give them the tools to use these technologies, they will use them, they will bring their assets over, and ultimately the value will flow into the protocol you and I already own. Guys, the XRP ledger is being pitched to these people on a daily basis. Yes, it's not thrown in front of your eyes like some of the meme coins. Yes, it's not thrown in front of your eyes like some of these Ponzi DeFi yield generating mechanisms. But guys, at the end of the day, I think there's a reason they don't want you to know about this. I think there's a reason a lot of what Ripple and XRP is doing is done in the background. I think one day you're going to zoom out and realize that they were holding this back because they simply didn't want you to own the thing they were building infrastructure around. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this update. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does mean so much. And for now, Mickle out.